Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network analyst, Chargers radio color analyst, and his Moving the Sticks podcast with Bucky Brooks and Rhett Lewis. NFL Network providing live coverage from the Combine Thursday through Sunday. Why do we place so much emphasis still in the 40-yard dash?
Oh, yeah. First of all, Dan, that was like announcing everyone who was not nominated for an Oscar there with that list of players. But look, it's still, to me, it's helpful for thresholds. You know, you want to see guys hit certain thresholds because there's a reason why you have the phrase outliers. Like most of the successful players at positions, and that's what I'll try and do during our coverage, is frame it with that perspective of most of the players that are successful, the top 10 receivers in receptions. These are what they average ran. This is what they average jumped. And you can kind of just see, okay, is this player that's on the line right now, is he kind of parking his car in the right neighborhood for those who've been successful?
I love the 10 yards. That to me, I think you can get a 10-yard time and see success at any position because it's so quick off the line. Your lineman, your linebacker, your edge rusher, your wide receiver, running back, I mean, all of that. But that's not glamorous because if somebody says, oh, what was your 10-yard time? It doesn't resonate where you go, damn, did you see how fast his 10-yard time was?
Yeah, I mean, look, it is that way really in draft rooms when you're talking about linemen. When you're talking about offensive linemen, defensive linemen, for sure. I mean, that's the number. We don't really spend much time talking about the 40 on those big guys. We talk about that. On corners, it matters. The 40 matters because you'll see guys who can get up to top speed quickly, but then they don't have that other gear, and you'll see receivers separate from them down the field. Same thing for wideouts. So there's value in the longer distance with those skill players. But for the linemen, absolutely. I mean, that's all you really focus on is the 10.
What is the number one topic in Indy?
The Bears. It's just it's there's so many different layers to it, Dan. So normally you come into this thing and it's like, okay, this team has the first pick. They don't have a quarterback. Which one of these one, two or three guys are, who are we talking about here? Who are they going to take? And now you have the Fields factor. You have the fact that they have the 9th pick as well. And just kind of how all that stuff works together. And that is going to have the trickle down effect on the rest of the draft. So that's, when you're walking around the street and you run into buddies and stuff, everybody wants to know what the heck those guys are going to do.
The Raiders GM, when asked about Devontae Adams, said he's a Raider. When the Bears GM was asked about Justin Fields, he was like, we're open. We're not sure. Want to do right by Justin. If you want to commit to him, you can. And then the free-for-all begins for that number 1 overall pick.
Yeah,
do you think they're moving on?
The same. I'm with you. I've been saying that from the very beginning. I felt like this was going to happen. They were going to move on. Now, I would say in terms of the odds, I feel like it's 80 to 90% they are going to stick at 1 and they're going to take Caleb Williams, and the other 10 to 20% is okay. Maybe they're comfortable with one of these other quarterbacks and they're comfortable maybe moving back within range to still get Justin Fields' replacement. But the way that it looked from the outside, and then I'm waiting for polls to say something that's going to change my mind, and that didn't happen at all with what he said. Because you would come in there and say, Dan, look, we love Justin Fields, the strides that he's taken. I mean, for us to go in a different direction, we would have to be blown away to not stick with Justin because of how excited we are. That did not sound like that yesterday.
No, it did not. It did not. I brought up the potential for a new kickoff, adopting the XFL model.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the realistic possibility is of something like that too? We had the biggest game of the year, and there were no kickoff returns. What would you do if you're going to try to incorporate something to start a game instead of starting a game with the touchback?
Well, Dan, full transparency, I've spent a lot of time over the last several months watching the 330 guys here, and I haven't caught up on the XFL in a few years since it launched. So what is the XFL kickoff rule?
Okay, they're going to have you separated by 5 yards. So the kicking team is going to be at your 35. Your receiving linemen, all 10 guys are going to be at the 30.
Okay.
They can't move until the ball is fielded.
Oh, interesting.
So no run-up whatsoever.
Yeah, you eliminate the runway.
Yes. What do you think?
I like that. I like that. And look, calling the Charger games, it's become time where you kind of grab your water when they're kicking off and just make sure you're taken care of here and see what personnel group's going to trot out onto the field. So I would like to see it become a play again. It's impacted me just watching players, Dan. Like I normally when I watch the wideouts and I'll go through and I'll look at their return yards and I'll go, okay, I'm going to watch all their returns and I'm like, why? Why am I spending my time evaluating these guys as kickoff returners? There's not really a kickoff return anymore.
Well, I wonder what we're going to do with the punt. Like, is the NFL going to somehow modify what you can do on a punt? Like, I don't know how far they're going to take this, but I do get concerned about that.
Yeah, no, look, that's interesting. Again, I didn't see the XFL, but I think that is kind of a fascinating, kind of a way to combine things to make it more safe, but yet have it be a meaningful play. The punt thing, I don't know what the answer would be there.
He's Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network analyst and Chargers radio color analyst. The quarterbacks who are going to show up, I don't know how many are going to go through drills, but could you be swayed with the medicals and the interviewing portion more so than you see something on the field?
Yeah, the most powerful tool that would impact your draft stock is what happens with the medical, because then it's not even, you don't even get to make the decision. I've been in the personnel room where we've finished meetings, going into the combine, and I've seen the board and how we had it stacked up. And then you come back for the next round of meetings in 1st of April, and you go, what happened to Johnson? Johnson was all the way up there. Like he's off. Like the medical stuff, he got completely taken off of our board. So that's the most impactful thing that happens down here this week. And I would say I was talking to a GM yesterday about the interviews, and he was saying how much can you get out of 15 minutes with a kid? And I said, well, I don't know that they can convince you of anything or sell you on anything, but I have been in there, and he admitted he had too, where and it's very rare, people disqualify themselves rather quickly in a 15-minute interview, but that's rare.
Okay. Did you have any silly questions when you were doing these interviews?
My favorite one, I think I might have told you this before, but my favorite one was when we had Pac-Man Jones in, and we asked him, I didn't ask him, but somebody in the room, I hate the 1 to 10 questions, but somebody in the room asked him, how would you judge your hands on a scale of 1 to 10? And Pac-Man looked at his right hand and said 10, and then he looked at his left hand and said 10. He graded them individually, not collectively.
I like that. Where's your second tier? You draw the line with the 3, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, and Caleb Williams, and then there's a drop-off?
Yeah, for me, yeah, there's a drop-off, then you get into the next 3. So I feel like we have, kind of a 3-man battle at the top, and then I think kind of a 3-man battle for that next one with McCarthy, with Bo Nix, and with Penix. And so that's the cool thing about this. Like we won't see the top 3 guys out there throwing at the combine, but there's other competitions taking place. And to be honest with you, Dan, I don't know who would you rather be. Would you rather be one of those 3 teams that's competing to go to a team that's picking 1st, 2nd, or 3rd? Or would you rather be those other 3 who are going to get a chance to go to better rosters, less pressure, more players around you like that? That we could have an argument on whether that's the better option there.
Well, I think we've talked about it. I certainly have on the show, that the reason why some quarterbacks are successful is they went a little bit later and went to a more established team. And the coach, look at Mahomes. If Mahomes goes to, Carolina or whoever, even this year, Patrick Mahomes in Carolina would not be Patrick Mahomes. He just wouldn't be. But you got a Hall of Fame coach. They have some Hall of Fame talent on that team, and you put in his talent. And, that's when you're more successful. You're more successful sooner sometimes when you go a little bit later in the draft.
Yeah, continuity, man. It's everything for those guys. And like I get asked the question about Caleb Williams all the time is like, can he be maybe not Patrick Mahomes, but can he be like a Patrick Mahomes? Can he have, can he be that? I'm like, well, does he get to go sit behind Alex Smith for a year, get coached by Andy Reid for a year, and throw to Kelsey and Tyreek Hill as he kind of gets his feet wet? I'd feel very confident in saying, yep, I'll stamp that one. That one's going to happen. But you don't know what type of environment these guys are going to go into.
Well, there's a reason why these teams are picking high, because they've had turnover. Maybe you don't have good ownership. Maybe, it's a new coach, an offensive coordinator, and, all of those things. Also, they got rid of the cognitive test after what happened to C.J. Stroud. help me understand exactly, was this a smear campaign with C.J. Stroud? Was it leaked to embarrass him or have him drop? Is it strategy here?
I think that's given whoever leaked it too much credit. I think a lot of times what happens is there's a weird relationship between, coaches or even personnel who get access to this information, and they become friendly with reporters. And it's kind of, I'm not saying this is the motivation, but a lot of times it's, hey, you're kind of helping me with, contacts and helping me get my name out there and helping me. Hey, let me give you a little something. How about this? Can you believe this? This kid got, such and such on a test. And it's kind of just like a trade of information there. I don't think there was anything that was, we're going to try and get him to fall in our lap and he's going to drop in the draft. I think it was something probably like that.
Well, considering how C.J. Stroud performed, maybe we reconsider that test. I know some agencies have said we're not going to have our players take it. And I feel bad. Even the Wonderlic. I wouldn't take the Wonderlic and I wouldn't take the cognitive test because not everything is shared. So it's not going to be private. And then all of a sudden, you're going to be the guy who got a 9 on the Wonderlic. You can't play football, or, your cognitive test was really low. You can't play quarter. I mean, I don't know. I understand the player's side of this.
So I used to have to, at pro days, when you're scouting, you carry in your backpack a stack of Wonderlic tests. And the guys that hadn't taken them or hadn't been to the combine or at the pro day, you'd have to administer the test. So I come home from a pro day and I put my bag on the table and I kind of clean out my backpack and these tests are on the table. My wife goes, "What's that?" And I go, "Oh, this is the Wonderlic test." I said, "I'll tell you what, you sit down at a 12-minute test, you take it first, and then I'll take it after you take it." So my wife takes it and she gets like a 37 or a 38, which is a really high score. I go, "Hey, that's great." She goes, "Okay, your turn." I go, "No chance." I said, "I've spent my whole life thinking you're smarter than me. I don't want it to be concretely proven." Didn't take it. Not happening.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to share that information with my significant other. I can imagine how other people must feel when it gets public.
Okay, but does it really translate into anything when you're asking me these questions? Like, give me a for instance question.
A lot of times it can be like the simple, if you're leaving, this city at this time and you're going 60 miles an hour, 2 hours from now, that type of stuff. I don't know. I've never been a huge believer in that. I've been on teams where some of our lowest scores on that because it would be on their draft card, or they have gold jackets hanging in their closet right now. So I never bought into that. But I think people, Dan, and whether it's the cognitive tests or whether it's a metric, whether it's the GPS data that we get now, whether it's a stat that these guys have, everybody's trying to find okay, what's the code here? What's the cheat code for how we figure these players out? And it turns out there isn't one, man. It's not a science. There is not one, data point. There's not one question you get an answer and you're going to know who these guys are. It's a flip of the coin sometimes, man. It's difficult to figure out. And I think people have tried to find a shortcut and there isn't one.
I go back to when I was told about a quarterback. And this was equipment manager. And he said, "Wait till you get a load of this guy." And I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Doesn't put in the time, doesn't put in the effort, and wasn't well liked, and he's going to go high in the draft." And then I immediately thought, I wonder how often people do background checks from the standpoint of, the equipment guy, team manager, any of those things. And I know that it puts them in a tough spot, but you do want to find out about this guy somehow, some way. Hey, do your teammates like you? Like, it seems so simple. Your teammates like you. And in this case, he proved to be correct in what he was saying about this player who didn't turn out to be a successful quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, I've always found like these combine interviews, I would learn more about their teammates than I would about them individually. Because they're going to have all their canned answers. They've been training. They've had people telling them what to say to all these questions. But when you have a kid in from Texas and you say, "Hey, any of your teammates say anything at halftime when you were down, by 2 touchdowns in this particular game?" Any of your teammates say, "Oh gosh, the linebacker, Smith came in and he was, getting in everybody's face and got us going and blah, 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 blah." And I've learned more about his teammate than I did about him in that 15 minutes.
Great to talk to you. Have fun there. And we'll talk to you soon.
I'm going to stress it 10 times this year, Dan.
I like it. I like it. Thank you, buddy. Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network analyst. Rich Eisen has the 40. I'm going to do the 10.
Oh, you got to start preparing, though.
No, I don't.